So I will tell you something about my experiences as to using social media. I first must explain a little bit that for 7 years until 2020, I was the vice president of the Council for the Judiciary in the Netherlands. And as such, I was trained in communication and dealing with journalists. I was also trained in dealing with politics because one of my tasks was to go frequently to the parliament to explain our advice on a new legislation, whether we were against it or in favor of it and why, etc. And I took some training to deal with the political dynamics there. So that is more or less my background. And then in 2020, I left the council and just became a judge again. I was a judge in the Supreme Court, but I decided not to go back to the Supreme Court, but to go back to my first court, the Court of First Instance. One of the reasons was that in my time as vice president of the Council for the Judiciary, I was rather involved in the battle for the restoration of the privacy of the rule of law in Poland. And as a Supreme Court judge, it is rather difficult to be active and outspoken. And I thought it would be better to go to my old court, which is, by the way, a 10 minutes walk from my house. So that's also convenient. And that would give me a better position to be a member in the public debate because, well, you will understand. So in March 2020, I started with a Twitter account on my own name. I used my own name, not a fake name. I also make public that I'm a judge. I do not say in what court it is. That's not to be secretive, but I am a criminal judge, and they are not always liked by some parts of society, so to speak. So it was advised to me on security reasons not to be very specific on where I live and in what court I am. So that's so only my name and the fact that I'm a judge and that I'm a professor at Maastricht University. So it started to find a platform to communicate with the Polish colleagues in their battle. Developments were very rapid, and it was not always easy to understand for the Dutch society or for Dutch colleagues, Dutch judges, what was really going on. So what I tried to do is get information, reliable information from Poland, and try to translate this into a very short text, and getting the essence of the developments in Poland, and give this essence to the Dutch colleagues, because that was the first group of followers that were Dutch judges, followers, and some international colleagues. So it was I used it as a tool of communication within, I would say, the European judiciary. And what I did was to use in a neutral way as possible. So use neutral language, no sneers to anybody, no big words, no big emotions. I try to explain what was going on in Poland, and I explained judgments from Strasbourg and Luxembourg in a nutshell, on the issue of the independence of the judiciary. So for myself, I had a few no-go areas. So one of them was no personal things, nothing about my dog or my children or whatever. That was also, I must say, for security reasons, again, because, well, as I said, I'm a criminal judge. So that was one no-go area. Then there was another no-go area, that is that I did not comment on any party politics in the Netherlands. So the perspective was Europe, not the Netherlands. That has to do with the fact that my share in Maastricht has this European perspective, and I wanted to maintain that and not make it a Dutch perspective. But there was also another reason. I was not in the council anymore. As I said, 7 years there. And I did not want to make trouble for my successors. So in my view, it is the first task of the President of the Supreme Court and the President of the Council for the Judiciary to comment on developments in politics on the judiciary. So these two things went together. For instance, I was, after the Dutch elections a few months ago, where a populist party became the biggest party in parliament, I was asked in a national television program to comment on that. And I said, no, I will not do that, because I will only accept an invitation to comment on developments from a European perspective and not from a national perspective. You must go to the President of the Supreme Court, or you must go to the President of the Council for the Judiciary. And this is what I try to be very strict in this role, because I always use the judgment in the Zurich case mentioned earlier today, that as a judge, you have a duty to defend the independence of the judiciary and the rule of law. And from that perspective, that is where I work, and that is only what I communicate on social media. So I do not tweet on persons in politics. There was a famous case in the Netherlands by the judge who said some years ago that the leader of the populist party was a terrible, stupid man, something like that. That was very unfortunate that this happened, and it should never happen again. But I do not Twitter about persons, and I do not Twitter in this kind of wordings. It's always neutral. So I do not comment on Dutch judgments either. That's nothing to do with social media, but that is the ethical rule that we do not comment on each other's judgments. And I do not enter in smear reactions, especially sometimes from Poland. Some of my followers are very much into our peace politicians, so to speak, and sometimes they react and on my tweets, And if it is I would say, a valid point of interest, put in a neutral tone, then we can have a discussion. But usually it's just smearing, using bad language, and etc., etc. And that I just ignore that. I do not react to that. And if they are being abusive 3 times, that's my personal rule, I just block them. So I do not enter in these kind of discussions because I think that is that has no use to do so. So that went on for I would say something like a year or that, and afterwards suddenly I wanted to outreach to society, so not staying just within the European judiciary, but to outreach to society. So quite a lot of journalists are my followers, and this results in quotes in newspapers, podcasts on the independence of the judiciary. This morning I was in a podcast about the independence of the judiciary in Europe, interviews in newspapers and on television. And also some of the members of the Dutch Parliament and the members of the European Parliament are following my tweets, and that results in the invitation to speak in the Dutch Senate and to the Dutch Parliament, and to deliver speeches there, the same in the European Parliament. And this is what I intend to do. I want to give trustworthy information about an important issue to society at large, and I want to keep this subject to the attention of the citizens, to journalists, and to politicians. And this is going on, although I'm not having an official position in networks, European networks, or in the council anymore. I'm just the individual judge, having a certain background, of course, in the networks, and I try to keep this important issue alive, and of course push it in the right direction. And that's where I use my Twitter account for, and at times I think it has some good influence, and that is why I keep on doing it. That is, I hope, within the time. Yes, 1 minute left. Chair, I'm happy to say that this is what I wanted to say.